footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our FCS playoff wraparound. We're going to take a look at the FCS playoff bracket and give you our thoughts and preview for every game that is listed in round one. So let's get this video kicked off by taking a look at the bracket.
First up, we have Furman taking on South Carolina State, and this game features two of the better defensive football teams in the FCS, and quite honestly, the Paladins find themselves in the playoffs because of it. I've been most impressed with how they're able to hold their own up front, and defensive tackle Ira McCune utilizes his speed and agility to be a disruptive force in both the running game and in the passing game. South Carolina State head coach Buddy Pugh has one of the most consistent programs in the country, and his defense is the #1 rated defense in the FCS with the nation-leading 62 sacks. But the other big story coming out of Spartanburg has been the play of freshman running back Justin Taylor, who is the Bulldogs' leading rusher with over 650 yards. The biggest key in this game will be which quarterback can be consistent enough to make plays in the air. Furman's Reese Hannon or South Carolina State's Richard Q. Both teams will struggle to move the football in my opinion, but I like South Carolina State on the strength of linebacker Joe Thomas and the #1 rated total defense in the country. Next up, we have BethuneCookman taking on Coastal Carolina, and the Wildcats enter this game as one of the most well-balanced teams in the FCS. Offensively versus CCU, the focus will be in the trenches where they are going against a very active defensive front. Now, BethuneCookman wants to operate off play action, so getting the ground game going early is going to be very important. On defense, the headliner of this group is linebacker Jarkevis Fields, who leads the #1 rated pass defense in tackles with 94. One would expect the Wildcats linebackers to have their hands full all day long with All-American running back Lorenzo Taliaferro, who at 6'2", 230 pounds is a Chanticleer's bell cow ball carrier, and CCU has a size advantage in the passing game as well. Quarterback Alex Ross has Matt Hazel and Demario Bennett at his disposal, and both guys do a great job in playing above the rim. Should be another great game between these two schools. Once again, I like BethuneCookman to avenge last year's loss to Coastal Carolina and play with better discipline and take care of business on the road. Southern Utah takes on Sam Houston State, and the Thunderbirds play efficient football, which means they don't beat themselves, and they do a great job of dictating defensively, led by All-American sophomore linebacker Zach Browning. And this week versus Sam Houston State, they have to protect the perimeter versus the speed of the Bearcats, and quite honestly, their offense will have to score touchdowns and not field goals. The Bearcats are no stranger to the playoffs, but are unfamiliar with playing in the first round. This game for me comes down to the first quarter offense for Sam Houston State. They have to build a quick and early lead, as points will be tough to come by. Defensively, look for talented cornerback Bookie Snead and company to take some chances versus the short passing game of Southern Utah. And I think ultimately the Bearcat defense, which hasn't been the dominant force we're used to seeing, will step up and be the reason why they move on to round two. Next up, we have Lafayette taking on New Hampshire, and the surprise of the playoff field is the Lafayette Leopards being the auto bid because of their winning of the Patriot League title. Yes, they have a losing record, but credit to them. They played great over the last month and a half of the season to be in this position. And they draw New Hampshire in round one, and that's a team that's been up and down as well. But when you look at the Wildcats offense, they are a team that spreads the field, yet they are able to run downhill, and they do a great job of forcing you to match their physicality up front in the trenches. And I actually like Lafayette in the upset. I think their speed and explosiveness on offense will put a lot of pressure on the perimeter defense of New Hampshire. So I like Lafayette to go on the road and knock off the Wildcats. Tennessee State takes on Butler, and they travel to Indianapolis to take on the Bulldogs, who won the Pioneer League in their first automatic bid. And Tennessee State is stockpiled with talent. You look at their tight end, A.C. Leonard, an NFL prospect, and also they're very big on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Butler does a great job in running the football. They have a talented tailback in Trey Heater, the 5'9", 195-pound senior out of Indianapolis. He's a local boy. The biggest question will be, can the Butler Bulldog defense match up front versus Tennessee State? I don't think so. I like the Tigers to win this one on the road. This is a great battle right here between Sacred Heart and Fordham, two outstanding stories on the season. And if you haven't seen Sacred Heart's running back, Keyshaudus Spence, you're missing the talented tailback, 5'10", 230 pounds. And their defense is the #1 defense as far as takeaways are concerned. They can really get you off the field with turnovers. Fordham has been the story of the FCS all season long. Quarterback Michael Niebridge has done a great job in facilitating the football, getting everyone involved. But that offensive line resembles the 7 blocks of granite back in the 40s. I like Fordham to win this ballgame. I think their offensive line is very stout. They'll do a great job of keeping Sacred Heart's defense at bay. And I think Fordham's defense, they do a great job of playing tight cover too. So I think their defense is just as talented. So I like Fordham to win a very close one in the Bronx versus Sacred Heart. You have the Jackrabbits taking on the Lumberjacks. South Dakota State travels to northern Arizona. And you know one thing, once South Dakota State gets off the bus, it's going to be Zach Zinner left, Zach Zinner right, and Zach Zinner some more. But what has been the surprising element to this offense this season has been the growth of Austin Sumner, the quarterback. He's healthy, that thumb is okay, and he should do a great job in operating off play action. For Northern Arizona, you look at their defense. Can they stop the running game, knowing that's what South Dakota State wants to do? And this has been a team that's been a very productive ball club in the Big Sky. I like Northern Arizona in this ball game. I think they'll do a great job in slowing down Zach Zinner, not stopping him, and that's just going to put more pressure on Sumner in that passing game and those receivers to make plays consistently. I like Northern Arizona to move on to round 2. And finally, we have Sanford traveling to Jacksonville State to take on the Gamecocks. And the Bulldogs are quite honestly one of the more talented football teams in the FCS. The problem is they're banged up going into this ball game. And we look at Jacksonville State, you're facing an offense that averages 30 points a game. They do a great job in attacking you deep down the field in the passing game. I think ultimately Jacksonville State will win this ball game. Sanford's defense is tough, but they don't have the pieces on offense. Everyone is banged up, like I mentioned before. So I think the Gamecocks take care of business and again, move on to round 2.